catch up on some business news around the country now with founder of The Remarkable Woman and business commentator Shivani Gopal. Good to see you, Shivani. First up, I wonder if you'd tell me about the stock market in Australia. It's been buoyant around the world, but Australia is sort of 7 days up, breaking records. What does this tell us about the economy and where we're heading?
Isn't it great? It's telling us that there's a great correlation between consumer confidence and business confidence on the rise. And, of course, everyone is so keen to get away from COVID normal, and just go into plain normal. And there's a bit of buoyancy around this because we're at the end of the year. Everyone's limping towards the end, and there's this huge optimism coming from new year, new you. So there's a bit of that, right? There's a bit of consumer sentiment around that. But, of course, we know that vaccine trials are going so well. We know that the UK has started. And you know, there are all these different countries that are finally securing their doses. So with all of that, it's having a great effect on the stock market, consumers, businesses, and everyone starting to think, you know, times will be better. Not to mention that, you know, our unemployment rate is doing a little bit better. We've still got almost 1 million people unemployed, but it's certainly less than what we had before. You
talk about shareholders, businesses and consumers, but they're different categories, aren't they? And with the share market going up, obviously people who hold those assets are doing well. But is there a sense that a lot of people, especially a lot of businesses, are still doing it tough? A lot of people waiting to see any sort of wage growth come through.
They'll be waiting a while.
They'll be waiting a while. But yet the consumer confidence is looking good going into Christmas?
Yeah, it really is. Consumer confidence is up by over 4% at 112 points, which is huge. You know, it's back to, you know, pre-COVID levels, if not more. And look, a little bit of that is the human condition, right, Chris? I mean, it's been a tough year, hasn't it? 2020 has just been a shocker.
A lot of people haven't been out shopping for a while. There's a lot of pent-up shopping power.
And shopping does make one happy. We know that. I can attest to that. And so, you know, there's this, you know, human level of buoyancy and people just wanting to see more, to be hopeful, to be optimistic. And, of course, the vaccines have a huge amount to do with that. And that's really triggering it. But also what we can see from consumer confidence rising is that it's not like your usual recessions, right? We've seen this huge bounce again of over 3% in the Australian economy. But also when we're seeing that this isn't like the GFC where we know that there's long, hard times ahead. Consumers are starting to factor in, at least with what we can tell from consumer confidence, that once there's a vaccine, things will start to return back to normal. And that's what we can see in that consumer confidence level.
And, of course, the borders coming down, travel picking up around the country is massive too, isn't it, economically?
Thank goodness, yes. I mean, the border closures between, you know, New South Wales and Melbourne alone was costing the economy $1.2 billion. So it's just a huge economic impact, and that has a massive ripple effect across everything, not just the aviation industry, but, you know, business owners that are around the borders, people who want to go see their families, people who are spending money in local communities as well.
Now, Shivani, tell us about this big move by the government, a world first, we keep being told, and there's no doubt that there's some justification in that, to try and get the tech giants, the Facebooks and Googles, to pay news producers like this station and all the newspapers, and as we just heard, even the public broadcasters, to pay them for the content that they share. Firstly, how difficult will this be to implement? How much resistance can we expect from Facebook and Google and the like? And secondly, just how much of a world first is it? If we do it well, will the rest of the world follow?
Yeah, I think the rest of the world is watching this one pretty closely because the tech giants really have a monopoly on this now because they are so darn successful, right, when it comes to Google and Facebook. All of that money is being funneled into that. And Australia is really punching above its weight when it comes to this. You know, we really are a world first, and I think people will be hearing that over and over again. And when it comes to the dollars, the traditional media companies, of course, like yourselves, are only seeing 19% of the advertising money that is spent, which is absolutely crushing them. But it's not just about saying, hey, let's give you guys more money. It's about the fact that we need to support quality journalism and we need to support, you know, real information and the use of that. And because consumers today are now, you know, cultured and gentrified to go and find their news on the news feeds, it's working against traditional media organisations.
Yeah, the people who produce the content have to get some of the money. And the important point here is the legislation does have a fallback, right, where the ACCC or effectively the government will come in and arbitrate and make an agreement. But the law is designed for that not to happen. The law is designed to encourage, say, Sky News or say the Sydney Morning Herald, to do a deal directly with Google and Facebook, a commercial agreement that the government doesn't need to have anything to do with.
That's the idea. The idea is everyone come to the table, let's have an open conversation. And to your earlier point, Chris, you're very right, there was a lot of resistance from Google and Facebook. So much so, there's a bit of threat, well, we'll move out of the area, and of course they're not going to do that. So they have come to the party. And Google and Facebook have also said, we want compensation for the fact that we bring you so many eyeballs. So there's going to be this fair dialogue in spirit, we think. Yeah, what actually happens, we don't know.
That's a reasonable negotiating point, isn't it?
That's right. And if they can't come to the party, if no one can, then yes, the government will need to step in again.
Shivani, thanks for joining us.
You're so welcome.
Shivani Gopal, they're the founder of The Remarkable Woman.